Okay. And okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We're now officially opening the meeting of today's Board of License Inspection Review for today, October 5th, 2021. Before we begin, I'd ask if everyone except for the attorneys for the city and the board members would put your call on mute. I'm getting some feedback. And if you're sitting next to someone on a different device, you may need to move farther apart because that may also be contributing to the feedback. And again, if you have background noise or you're not in a space where there's a lot of activity, just be aware that that will affect our ability to communicate with you. Zoom is a wonderful thing, but it does have some limitations. So we just have to be patient and work through them. Before we begin, I will ask each city attorney that's represented if there is a request for continuance, withdrawals, or otherwise resolve matters. So I'll make the phone just in order to keep us all on the same page. I'll do that. I'll begin with, let's see, the first person I see is Jason Greenspan.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Jason Greenspan for the city. If I could draw your attention to, it's number 1 on your list. It's appeal number 39564. I believe the individual is here. I believe it's the one that's listed as iPhone. That is moot complied.
Moot complied? Perfect. Thank you. So anyone related to 2211 East First Street, this matter has been resolved. Moot complied.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
And if I could draw the board's attention to, it's number 5 on your list. It's appeal number HA 2021-003995.
Yes.
That was a continuance requested by the city. I believe council is here as well.
I'm here, yes.
Okay. Council for the appellant is here. They're not objecting to our request. I submitted it earlier last week. I have not heard from the board.
The board reviewed the matter in executive session. Before I pronounce a decision, Mr. Joseph London, Esquire, are you present, sir?
I am present.
Okay. Do you concur with the city's representation?
Hold on,
Okay. The answer to that was yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, based on that concurrence, the city has, the board has agreed to continue the case.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Christopher Johnson.
Hi, this is Chris Johnson. I'm here on behalf of the city of Philadelphia in the matter of Ilya Chebatar, the contractor revocation. It's number 6 on the list.
Okay.
And I have appeared here today with the intention of going forward. I had a conversation with the attorney, Mr. Stanwood, for Mr. Chebatar, and there had been a suggestion that he was considering withdrawing the appeal. But I know, and that was literally before 1 o'clock, about 5 minutes before that, I got an email. I'd been in connection with him by email, and I don't see him on the list though here of people on the call.
Okay, let's do this. Let's finish the other matters, then come back to you, and we'll see if he's going to join us. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much. All righty, Mr. Panko.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If I could go to number 3 on the list, HA 2021-002438, Speedway LLC. And also number 4 on the list, HA 2021-002439, also Speedway LLC. Opposing counsel and myself have agreed to a continuance on this matter.
Okay.
And we would like to put this on the list for December 14th, if possible.
Okay. Who's representing the opposing, who's the opposing counsel in both these matters?
Michael Drugan, who I do not see on this Zoom. However, I do have email correspondence, and I believe the board was copied on that correspondence.
Okay, there's also a Samuel McKibbe, I think is noted on my paper, McKibbe. Is that person present?
I
Okay,
believe they're with the same firm,
okay,
although Mr.
right.
Drugan has been contacting me.
okay. The board did review this request in executive session, and we agreed to continue the case, both cases.
Great, thank you. And I'm also here for the city on number 2, which we intend to go forward with today.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty. Let's
thank you.
then go back to number 6, HA
Also here for the city on number 2,
regarding
which we
Ilya
intend to go
Chevitar.
forward with today.
And I guess, Mr. Johnson, you're representing the city, correct?
Correct. And I have a number of witnesses who have appeared today and called in preparation of this hearing. I know that Mr. Stanwood and Mr. Chepitar both know about the hearing. I just emailed him again to see if he's going to appear. And like I said, the last discussion I had with him, and I talked on the phone with him about 12:15 today, was that Mr. Chepitar was considering withdrawing the appeal, but I have no confirmation one way or the other as of right now.
Okay. Ms. Rand, what time did we ask the appellant to present themselves?
1:15 p.m.
1:15? Okay, it's 1:35 thereabouts now. Let us do this. Given the magnitude of this matter, let us hear case number 2. Yes.
Excuse me,
Correct.
Mr. Stanwood has just, Attorney Stanwood has just entered the waiting room, and I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
It's just taking a minute. It says joining.
Okay, I think we do have Mr. Stanwood in the room. Is there anyone else in the waiting room, Ms. Rand? You're waiting to allow to enter?
No, there is not.
Okay, Mr. Stanwood.
Yes,
This is Kenneth Woodson. I'm chair of the board. The case that you represent, Mr. Ilya Chevitar, has been called. Can you tell us what is your intention regarding today's hearing?
I actually don't know the answer to that. Mr. Johnson and I and another solicitor have been talking, and he may withdraw the appeal, but can we put this on hold for a little bit further?
Well, we have one other case to hear, and after that matter is heard, we will come back to you. Mr.
Okay.
Johnson, are you okay with that in terms of procedure for today?
I'm okay with that.
And I'd ask everyone who's been asked to be here and on time as a witness or participant, thank you for your patience and your participation, but we're going to hear another matter, then come back to this one. Okay, thank you. Okay, then, Ms. Rand, would you call case number 2?
Sure. Case number 2, appeal number HA-2020-004384, Chadwick S. Smith, 1201 Wharton Street, represented by Lee Elsie Esquire.
Okay. And who's representing the city in this matter?
Good afternoon, members of the board. James Panko on behalf of the city.
Good afternoon. Do we have anyone representing the appellant or Mr. Lee Elsie Esquire?
Yes, good afternoon, members of the board. Lee Elsie representing the appellant.
Okay. Mr. Elsie, you prepared to move forward?
At this time, we'd like to request a continuance.
On what grounds?
We continue to move through the process to amend our current zoning. It's taking longer than expected. We were expecting to have our zoning in line by now. We think everything is on track to be approved. It's just still processing through LNI.
Okay, Mr. Panko, what is your city's position?
We would oppose a continuance for today. This matter is, as my witness, Mr. Curtis Daniel, can testify to, is about a permit revocation, which can be cured without the amended zoning. So I don't believe that a continuance is prudent in this matter.
Okay, now we've continued this matter once before, I believe.
Yes, I believe once before.
Okay, Mr. Elsie, do you have did you plan to have witnesses for today's hearing?
I don't have witnesses. I did forward to Mr. Panko a copy of the form that we're kind of relying on as our justification for amending the permit as opposed to proceeding with the permit as originally issued.
Okay, so I guess my question for you is that I'm loath to continue this again, given the complexity of this matter and all of that's hinging on it. We prefer to move forward. So what I'm asking you, are you prepared? Are you ready and prepared to move forward? Asking for the continuance at the time of the hearing is not a good thing.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, honestly, we expected to have our zoning in line. We expect after next week, our zoning issue will be resolved, and I think that will remove a lot of the underlying issue in the case. It all centers around a newer mixed density issue, which we are kind of navigating the best that we can.
Which may not be relevant to the matter of whether you've complied with the conditions of existing permits or not. And so that's where we are at the moment.
So just to put that in a little bit of context, the original
well, Mr. Elsie, before we start hearing facts, then let's do this. This is still preliminary. Mr. Pincus?
The appeal doesn't say anything about zoning as an issue. The appeal appears to deal with a issuance of a permit that's already been issued in reliance on a low-income bonus, and that hadn't been obtained. So that the zoning is not a subject or mentioned in your appeal. If you say you are now waiting for a zoning approval, wouldn't that then result in your needing to go back and obtain a new building permit?
It will be a revision of the existing permit. The risk of going into the facts, the only issue with the current zoning is making a payment to the Affordable Housing Fund, whereas my client has decided, instead of making the payment, to provide 2 affordable housing units. There's kind of 2 options in how to get that bonus.
Okay.
So, once that processes, it should remove the underlying issue.
Okay, well, let's do this. With the desire to keep these things as well organized as possible, I do not want to complicate this with an argument regarding zoning. So we want to focus strictly on the matter of the appeal, which is what's noted in the documentation. This is the concern I have, and I want to proceed. Now, one other question, sir, is that are you representing Mr. Chadwick Smith? Is he your client, or who is your client in this matter?
My client is 1201 Wharton Street, LLC.
Well, who is Chadwick S. Smith? Is that person present today?
I'm here.
Yes, he is a representative owner of that entity.
Okay, Mr. Smith, I don't see your image.
No.
Mr. Smith, can you, now I see, yes. Mr. Smith?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and we can see you. Before we begin though, you are the named person on the appeal. What is your role in this thing? What is your relationship to this project?
I'm one of the owners of 1201 Wharton LLC.
How many people are part of the LLC?
There is 4 owners.
Okay. Do you have legal counsel yourself? Who is your legal counsel?
In this matter, Lee Elsie is my legal counsel.
I'll represent him as well.
Well, I guess the question is, who's the owner of the property? Who's the legal owner the property and who's the proper party to have filed the appeal is what we're trying to find out.
Well, I'm the legal, well, my entity that I am the legal owner of is the owner of the property. And the appeal is, I guess it's in my name. Is that what's confusing everyone? Is it has my name instead of the property owning entity's name?
That's the
Yes.
start of confusion.
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Okay.
And your name is identified as the appellant.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, I'm
are
not
you
sure.
represented by Mr. Elsey?
Yes,
So your interests are his interests in this matter.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Do we-
All right. Thank
do
you.
we-
That clears up a lot. But
the-
I want to move forward with this unless I hear a different vote of the board or a different opinion from the board. I don't want to
Mike,
continue this. hearing.
I would like to clarify, the legal owner of the property is 1201 Wharton LLC, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there a document that has been provided, or is there a copy of the deed or some document or does the city have that, or is the city prepared to proceed with the understanding that 1201 Wharton LLC is actually the legal owner? I guess the appeal should be amended. We've got Mr. Jefferson listening in on us. Maybe the appeal should be amended to reference the proper party here.
Mr. Pincus, yes, I can confirm that 1201 Wharton LLC is the owner of the property. I don't have the deed on hand, but I have confirmed that through the city records. I can pull the deed if that would be helpful.
No, if you're satisfied that 1201 Wharton LLC is the legal owner and Mr. Elsey is their counsel, and Mr. Smith is one of the members of the LLC, I think from at least that seems to me that would be adequate to proceed.
Yeah, because one of the things that we've seen in the record is that there's a owner, Mr. Or a Marion D'Amico. Is that individual part of the LLC?
No, that's who
She
we
is
bought.
she's a former owner. At the time, the original application took place was during the acquisition. So she was on some of the early paperwork, but once the property changed hands, the owner became 1201.
Okay. All right. Well, then what we will do, we will proceed today.
I do have one further concern. It appears that Mr. Smith is in a vehicle and it appears to be moving, and we always seem to be somewhat concerned that if we're in the process of a hearing that people should be stationary.
Yes, Mr. Smith, if you can make sure you're in a safe place and not moving because your connectivity will be compromised if you're moving in a vehicle.
And he's also
Understood. I'm getting right back to, I had to spin around on one of the jobs I'm at to get out of the way of a truck. So I'm almost back at a parking spot.
Okay, Mr. Elsey will be representing his interests. So please, until Mr. Chadwick Smith is able to find himself a safe parking space, please don't bring him in, okay? Mr. Elsey?
Thank you. So the appeal at hand has to do with,
Well, the city will start. The way we will do
Yes.
this, just so I can set the parameters of today's meeting.
Mhm.
We will begin the process by having the board introduce itself so everyone present will know with whom you're dealing and who's making the decision. We will then have the city itself begin by presenting the facts as they understand them, after which Mr. Elsey, representing the LLC, and the appellant will likewise present its case, after which the board will make a decision. That's how we will generally proceed. All witnesses will be sworn and under oath when they're testifying. And I just encourage everyone who will be acting as a witness, please do not speak unless your attorney calls on you to speak or unless you communicate directly with your attorney and request to speak. We don't want there to be any unnecessary chaos in these proceedings. And I'd ask that attorney and clients and witnesses have a method of communicating so that you can do that confidentially without it being part of today's record. It's important. And if you need to take a minute to establish that, please let me know so we can make sure that's established. We want everyone to have an opportunity to be heard and to be treated fairly. Okay, thank you very much. We will now introduce ourselves. Again, I'm Kenneth Woodson, Chair of the Board of License Inspection Review.
Ralph Pincus, board member.
Steve Pettit, board member. Chris Woods, board member.
Michelle Rand.
Ms. Rand, you're muted.
Sorry, Michelle Rand, Boards Administrator.
Tim Mathis, Boards Administration.
Thank you. And Mr. Jefferson?
Yes, Ed Jefferson, counsel to the board. And I believe one of the board members had alluded to the fact that the appellant in the appeal should be amended to reflect the LLC as opposed to an individual member. And that should
Okay.
be.
Thank you. I think your audio went out, Mr. Jefferson, before you completed your statement.
Yes, it has been raised by one of the board members that the appellant in this case should not be Mr. Chadwick Smith in his individual capacity because counsel represents the LLC, which has more members than just Mr. Smith. So for the purposes of the record, the appellant should be amended to be the LLC and not the individual.
Okay. Thank you very much for the record. Please note the appellant in this matter will be noted as the LLC representing the owner, which is the legal owner of the property. Thank you. All of you will also see the image of our court reporter, Ms. Kimberly Spengler. I'd ask everyone who's present will be acting as a witness, but please raise your right hand so that you may be sworn. All those individuals who are, if there is any witness who currently is not on video, please go on video and unmute your speaker so that you may be sworn because I need you to respond. Ms. Panko, all of your witnesses present?
Yes, I only have Mr. Curtis Daniel.
Okay. So Mr. Curtis Daniel and also I assume Mr. Chadwick Smith. So Mr. Smith, if you raise your right hand. Mr. Smith, you need to unmute yourself so that we can hear your response. Okay, thank you.
Unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today be the truth so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Curtis Smith, I didn't hear your response.
Curtis Daniel.
Curtis Daniels, my apologies.
Correct. I do.
All right, thank you very much. You can place your hands down. Okay, thank you very much. And again, I apologize for the connectivity. I'm not sure what's going on in the atmosphere. We're getting some slow movement and some distorted voices. So we'll need to work extra hard to hear one another. Let's begin then with the city, Mr. Panko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This matter concerns the property at 1201 Wharton Street. License and inspections issued an intent to revoke building permit number CP 2020-004169 due to the applicant and holder of the permit failing to pay into the housing trust fund. With that, I would call Mr. Curtis Daniel as a witness.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daniels.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Daniel. Could you explain your title and role with license and inspections?
Okay. Again, Curtis Daniel, that's my name. I'm the Director of Development Services for the issuance of permits and licenses with the Department of Illinois. I'm commissioned to revoke permits and licenses if issued in error or for any reason.
Okay, and Are you familiar with the property at 1201 Wharton Street?
Yes, I am familiar with that property. It was brought to my attention by an official in the planning unit. That's probably like a few months after the permit was issued.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Michelle, I think my screen sharing is disabled.
I apologize. It should work now.
Thank you. All right, I'm sharing what's been marked as Exhibit C. Mr. Daniel, are you familiar with this document?
Yes, I am.
And could you explain what this document is?
This document is the way of communicating with the applicants. I issue a intent to revoke after a permit has been issued. I want, in that case, I want the applicant to act upon it to, to correct the issue before the revocation date. So I normally give 30 days, which is like 30 days to rectify the issue. Now, before I wrote this letter, I could just add, before I wrote that letter, the examiner has to reach out to the applicant, and tell them what, to expect.
And let me just backtrack a little. What was the date of this letter?
December 9th, 2020.
Okay. And who did you send this letter to?
This letter was sent, if you look at it, it was sent to the district office. I also copied Mariano D. Americo, which is 1201 Wharton Street. That's the owner. So the district supervisor and the owner received this letter.
And the header here, this was also sent to Mr. Elsey, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the reason for the notice of intent to revoke?
The plans examiner did not follow, the agreement set by the zoning permit. The applicant had to provide proof of a payment to the mixed income, to the housing trust fund, in accordance with that section of the zoning code. So they went into agreement with planning, got the bonus, and they had to make that payment before we issued the permit. We could have reviewed the permit, but issuing the permit, we did that in error. So that is why I was trying to get this resolved. If a payment was made, then I would resend the notice of revocation.
Anything else, Mr. Panko?
Mr. Panko got kicked out of the Zoom. He'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies. No. I got kicked out of the Zoom.
May I interrupt and ask a question just for clarification? This letter dated December 9th is addressed to Lee Elsey at Living City Architecture. Although I believe Mr. Elsey has indicated to the board that he's an attorney and is representing the LLC. Can we just confirm that? Mr. Elsey?
Sure, I can confirm. I am both an architect and an attorney, so I acted as an architect on this matter and have handled it as an attorney after the appeal was filed.
Thank you.
Before we leave that matter though, Mr. Elsey, just for the record, would you mind, are you licensed in the state of Pennsylvania, both to practice architecture and to practice law?
Yes, I am.
And can you give us your credentials for law, please?
Sure. I believe my Pennsylvania license number is 316990. Is that sufficient?
Oh yeah, that's what we needed to know. If that's a good number. And also you've registered architect in the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr.
Okay,
Banco?
yes, again, apologies. As you said, there's something in the air today. Mr. Daniel, you had explained to the board about the Housing Trust Fund. Is that where we left off?
Yes.
Okay.
A payment had to be made prior to issuance of the permit. However, we issued the permit in error before receiving the proof of the payment.
Okay. Now I'm going to scroll up to what I've marked as Exhibit B. Mr. Daniel, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Okay. And could you explain to the board what this document is?
This document is an agreement between the applicant and planning for the mixed income bonus.
And so what is part of the agreement on this document?
Okay, so well, the applicant's going to provide one affordable unit. The total units is 10. One thing I would say about this document, because I see there's another document in the system also, which I didn't send up, is the amount, an agreed amount. Yeah, so they're going to use the moderate income bonus. And if you scroll down, all of that is part of the zoning code for height, where they get in the bonuses. And this is the acknowledgement statement that's part of the zoning code, just stating that they will comply with that. And you have the applicant's signature and planning. So that's like a binding agreement for us to issue the permit. If you look at the section 14 from the zoning codes, 14702.7. That's also in my notice. That's what was, I would say not breach, but that's what we wrote the revocation on.
Right, okay. All right, so I'm gonna scroll down to, I've marked as Exhibit C. Is this the zoning ordinance that you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. And as part of that,
yes.
Could you read D.2 for me?
No building permit shall be issued pursuant to Section A301 of Title 4 for any project or any portion thereof that has been awarded bonus floor area, building height, or dwelling unit pursuant of this sections 14702.7, unless the Department of Planning and Development has certified to the Department of License and Inspection that the applicant has made all required payments pursuant to an agreement provided for by subsection B6, or is in compliance with all of the following.
All right. And to your knowledge, has the permit owner complied with all of the subsections of D.2?
To my knowledge, the applicant has not complied with it. May I add that also part of what planning would accept is like conversation, like how are they going to comply with it? And from planning, they have not heard any they have not received any response or communications with the applicant.
Okay. And I have subsection E here. Could you just read what subsection E.1 says?
Okay. Failure to comply with any provisions of a recorded instrumental requirement by section 14.727 shall, in addition to any other remedies available by law, be grounds for revocation of any building permit, certificate of occupancy, or rent license, and the prohibition of renewal of any such permits, certificates, or licenses. A fine of $500 per day of non-compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Those are all the questions I have. Mr. Dan,
Thank you. Mr. Elsie, do you have any cross-examination?
Yes, I do. Am I able to share my screen? I wanted to go back to Exhibit C and just point out that the exhibit that we're looking at under the mixed income bonus project intends to, Mr. Daniel, which of the options is checked on this form?
Provide affordable housing.
As opposed to the other option, which would be to make payment to the city.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're looking at a form that doesn't require payment. Just wanted to note that to the board.
Ms. Elsie,
Looking at the wrong documentation.
Ms. Elsie, I'm not certain what I'm looking at here. Would you mind directing us to that section of the form that you just referenced, please? And also, can you make it bigger?
I'm having trouble seeing.
Certainly.
Okay, that helps. Mr. Pink, does that help?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I'm looking at the third section below, which says check 1, provide affordable housing. Total housing units 10, affordable housing units 1. And then it says make a payment. That has not been checked off, nor is a dollar amount filled in.
Okay. All righty. And this is the form that was signed by Mr. by Marion D'Amico, correct?
This one was signed by myself as the applicant, as the architect, the design professional on the project.
Well, scroll down to the bottom, please. Okay, the one we saw earlier, though, that was presented by Mr. Panko had Mr. D'Amico's name on it, I believe, at the bottom.
I don't believe so. This is the city's exhibit.
Okay.
Yeah, I can confirm that that's the same exhibit I showed earlier.
Okay, all right, my apologies then. Okay.
There appears to be an error in the evidence in the matter. Just a few further questions, Mr. Daniel. It's set forth the city's policies to require payment. How is this typically applied? Because in this case, it seems it came from a specific person in the planning department. Is there a general check the city uses?
What we normally get as for payment is planning would send us a copy of the check that was paid to them. And that's how we use it. We would upload it. So we'll get an email from planning with a PDF copy of the check saying it was settled.
Excuse me, Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Panko just got kicked off again. If we could wait for him to return.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies, members of the board and Mr. Elsie. Could you repeat your last question, if you don't mind?
Certainly. I asked Mr. Daniel how the policy for requiring payment prior to the issue of the permit is typically enforced. If there's a set policy, or if it's, in this case, it seems like the permit was issued, but then someone in the planning department raised the concern.
Should I answer that? Because you added.
Yes,
that.
yes, please do.
Okay, so yeah, the permit was issued in error. Like I said, the examiner missed it, and months after planning in doing, doing the checks and balances, they realized they never obtained a payment for that, to the housing trust for that particular property. When they tell us that, we flag it, and it is our duty, the Department of L&I, to try and make amends because we issue a bad permit. And how it's rectified, if the applicant or owner communicates with planning and the payment is made, we would get a email from the planning unit stating it was settled with a copy of the check, and we just move ahead. So if the permit was not issued, this is what we would require to issue the permit. The fact that the permit was issued, we still will require it to rescind this revocation.
Okay, and you did mention that the planning department will work with applicants, but no one in the planning department had heard from 1201 LLC.
Yes.
So I'd like to show an exhibit now. Exhibit A.
Before you move from that page, I do have a question of the witness. Sir, how do you, if that section that's checked does not indicate that a payment is to be made, but it's Elsie, if you could put back the previous document.
Sorry, this one.
And expand it, please, so that it's readable.
Sorry, this one.
Is that working?
I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Now, sir, Mr. Daniels, if I'm reading this document and it has check one, and it's the one that's checked is provide affordable housing, and the one that says make a payment to the city is not checked, what is the expectation of the reader as to what is required?
I have to apologize for this. There is two documents in there. This one says affordable housing. There is another document, another permit. Actually, there's another document.
Was
okay.
That? Well,
sorry. This is an error. The zoning permit reference on this document is not the zoning permit that is being questioned.
How do we know the difference?
Okay. I will.
No, you can't put up any documents.
Okay.
That's what the lawyer should do, or for Mr. Elsie to do.
All right.
But I just want to have you on the record.
There is one that says what they agreed to pay. It does give a figure of 88,000. Okay. So that's what I was saying. It was missing this. So there is another document in the system that really states what they agreed to pay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm in the middle of this call. Let me get to you as soon as it's over. All right.
Miss Elsie, you have anything else?
I just wanted to provide evidence of, in our process to amend this permit, this is the current form signed by Representative Chadwick Smith, who's on this call. and most recently sent in as part of our zoning revision. The form has changed a little bit, but as you'll see here, the same section C, provide affordable housing, 12 total units, 2 affordable units, no payment to the city. That has been, different versions of this have been sent and received by the Planning Commission as we've been trying to work through this over the last, well, now it's been about a year. It's proven to be a very kind of complicated and frustrating process, but we are moving in a direction that does not require a payment to the city. And we believe, well, I'm not asking a question of Mr. Daniel,
Okay.
but
It would be, Mr. Elsie, how about this? Because you're now.
I have 2 questions. Number one, this document you submitted is signed by Chadwick Smith, and then it says Company Flow, FLOW, which is not the LLC, which you've represented as the appellant. Number one. And number two, if in fact you're no longer pursuing the use of a building permit that's relied on a cash payment to the city, maybe your appeal should have been withdrawn.
we're not abandoning the permits. We are in the process of amending the permits. They're both active and we intend them to be active. We've paid the fee to pull the permits, and what's changing in the building amounts to nothing that has to do with life safety, structural or anything else. It's just a matter of how we comply with this density
Okay,
bonus.
wait a minute. I think we've gotten a little out of sequence here. Mr. Elsie, you were cross-examining the city's witness.
Yes.
And so if you completed that, your document
further
that you just
questions.
put up should be submitted when you present your case, okay?
Yes, no further questions.
Okay, no further questions. Okay.
Well,
Mr. Painter,
I apologize. I was in the middle of asking a question. I
but
guess
only of stuff that he's already testified to, not of any new
Yes.
document.
my apologies. Yeah, no further questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Panko, you have anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Elsie, if I could, thank you. Appreciate that. One moment. Mr. Daniel,
Yeah.
I'm showing you Exhibit C, which is the notice of intent to revoke. What is the zoning permit number on this letter? So my cursor's around it.
Yeah. The zoning permit number is 004696.
Okay.
And that was what was
this is-
referenced in the exhibit. I realized that.
Right, so this on Exhibit B, it's a different zoning
Yeah.
permit, correct? Okay,
It's a different zoning permit. So if I think I sent you something in Teams just a while ago, because I
okay.
just realized this wasn't the correct zoning permit that's referenced.
Give me one moment. I'll mark this as Exhibit E, one moment. Mr. Daniel, what is this document on the screen?
It's your screen. This document is a document for the mixed income bonus. That's the agreement. And this was with the actual permit in question, the zoning permit that is the prerequisite for the building permit that I sent out the notice of intent to revoke. This is what was referenced in the.
Okay, and then in section 2 here, what are we seeing in section 2?
In section 2, that's the agreement where they agreed to make that payment to the city.
Okay.
So it's different from what you saw in the last one, which is a different thing.
And so this, just to confirm, this is the same zoning permit number that is in your notice of intent to revoke, correct?
Correct.
And what is the date on this document?
The date on this document, I have to find it. Oh, on the actual document, this is when they agree, August 3rd, 2020. Let me see when it was uploaded in our system.
That's fine. That's sufficient.
Signatures.
Okay.
There are no signatures from the development. It seems to be incomplete at the bottom. The signature lines are incomplete. Who is LF or whatever that is?
The
Zoning permit
signature that
applicant
appears on it is the applicant's signature, and that would be my signature. It does appear to be missing the.
Mr. L. Oh, so Mr. Elsie, that is your signature on this document?
Yes, it is.
That's dated August 3rd, 2020.
Yes.
Could you go move back up? How much was the amount that was supposed to be paid? $88,834. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Elsie, do you have any cross-examination based on the additional testimony?
If I could, regarding that last document, it appears to be missing a signature from the department. Is that required on that signature? Should that document have that signature to be the official document?
You're asking Mr.
Asking Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel, please respond.
Yeah, it should have a signature. Actually, I can't even see a signature on this. But it was the document we used.
That'll be all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Panko, any additional witnesses or testimony?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is that the basic basis of your presentation for today?
That's correct. I would just reserve argument pending any witnesses that Mr. Elsie wants to call.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Elsie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to call Mr. Chadwick Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chadwick Smith, are you available?
Grabbed by the question. I'm sorry, bring me up to speed.
Okay, Mr. Smith, we're calling you as a witness in front of the board. What is your authority to speak on behalf of 1201 Wharton LLC?
I'm a Class A member and a registered representative of 1201 Wharton LLC.
We've seen a few different versions of the mixed income bonus form presented in the city's documentation. I wanted to show you, is this the current form?
Yes, it is.
Now, I just wanted to ask you about the process. Why didn't you make the original payment when requested by the city?
We had decided to provide affordable units, and we were working on updating that documentation to provide the affordable units in the building. We were also using a higher density than what was originally issued.
And when you made that decision, what were the steps you took?
You mean in the pulling of the permit or in the
Did you,
following the zoning?
as far as with the active zoning and building permit, was your intention to withdraw those or to amend those?
Intention was to amend. We've paid, it was about a $10,000 permit fee for the permit. It was issued as normal. And then there was a new partner added into this entity that was on board with providing the affordable units with me. And that's what we decided as our path forward. Instead of the payment, we thought it was better for this neighborhood to provide affordable units for the aging demographic that has been here for so many decades.
And what made you decide not to make the payment to the city and then make the change and take that approach?
That wasn't, I mean, we saw that the permit was issued, we paid the permit fee and the permit was issued to us. The payment in lieu was not requested at the issuance of the permit, so it wasn't even part of our train of thought. The decision of the affordable over the payment was a discussion, which we then decided we thought was better for the community to provide, and that's what we've been working on updating the documentation for. But like you said, it's intended to be an amendment to the permit since there's not significant changes being done, not a new permit issuance.
Do the changes impact life safety or structural aspects of the permitting or the building process?
No, they don't.
Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Pinto, do you have any cross-examination?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith. So you were aware of the housing payment, correct?
Yes, I'm aware of them.
Okay, and specifically you were aware of it regarding the permit ending in zero. Sorry, give me 1 second. 004696. Were you aware that that zoning permit that we're discussing today required a housing payment?
I mean, yes, I'm aware of the process. I guess I'm aware that you either have an option of providing affordable units or making a payment. When and how it is administered, and at the time that it was being done, it was still really new in the city's process as well, and that was not clearly defined.
And so, but you are aware that on August 3rd, Mr. Elsey signed that document that included the $88,000 payment?
Yes, I am aware.
Okay. And then at some point you changed your mind on the providing affordable housing versus the payment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at what point did that happen?
After the August 3rd date.
Okay. And then you're aware that in December of 2020, there was the notice of intent to revoke letter, correct?
Which is what then had us starting the amendment process, updating the documentation so that we could address Mr. Daniels' concerns. Like he said, it's shocking, I guess, to me that there's been no record of us contacting planning on this, because we have been working on it ever since it's been brought to our attention. And I guess from a technical end, it sounds more complicated hearing the hearing, but from our end, we're looking at it as we're either providing affordable units or we're making a payment we're deciding to provide affordable units and we have paid for our building permit. It's not a low cost. So I'm not sure why we are not able to resolve this, I guess, in a simple way.
I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, I'm sure that some other, myself included, board members may have questions of Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, what is the current status of construction?
We are currently under construction.
At what point are you in the process? Are you 30%, 40%? Where are you in the process?
We're 20 to 25%.
Okay, 20 to 20, meaning all your basic excavation is done and your foundations are in, basically?
Correct.
Okay, so the basic perimeter of the building has been established. The
Well,
size, the mass of the building has been established.
Yes, it's an existing building that we're rehabilitating. So the occupied area is fixed.
So you've probably completed most of your demolition.
Yes.
Okay. When you made the decision to change the density of the building and to change your approach to providing the low-income housing, what date was that? About what time did that occur? When did that occur?
That happened in early 2021.
Early 2021?
Yes.
When you say early, meaning January, February?
Yeah, like probably January. That's about the right time frame. Yes.
Okay, when you decided to change your strategy.
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever submit an amended permit application?
Yes, we did.
When did you do that?
Lee, do you know the exact date of that?
That the document that was submitted as evidence, that one's dated November of 2021. Is that the document? I'm sorry, 9/30/2021.
That's the update. That's no,
Sorry, that
not
was a
one.
revision. I'm looking for it. I'm sorry, I'm looking in LNI and the dates don't really lay that out so clearly. I will provide the date in just a moment.
Okay.
I know the amended permit application would have happened most likely, I'm pretty sure, after we closed on the property in the end of February.
Of 2021.
Of 2021, correct.
Okay. So before February 2021, all the initial planning and applications, etc., were done in concert with you by Ms. Marion D'Amico. Is that how it happened?
Well, Marion was the prior owner that we had purchased the building from. So in order to file the building permits, which was the building permits were required by the lender to close the loan. They needed sign off by her, which is why she was involved or on this documentation. But we have since purchased the property from her. She's no longer involved in it.
Understood. Okay. But she did everything in concert with you. So you understood what was going in the documents and how they were being submitted, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so is it your understanding, a testimony that in fact, initially you had agreed to make a payment? You had initially agreed to make a payment to the Housing Trust Fund.
That under that zoning permit? Is that what you're, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
I'm asking you as in the initial phases of the project, when you initially pulled the permits and structured the deal, you had agreed to make a payment into the Housing Trust Fund. Now you later changed your mind.
No, we did. Yeah. We originally we were providing it, then we changed our minds to make a payment, and then we changed our mind again to provide.
Okay. And did you receive the current building permits and the current zoning under the understanding that a payment would be made?
Okay. We received the building permit because we paid for it.
That
Well, I
isn't what
guess
I
I'm
asked.
sorry, I'm a little confused.
No, it's very clear. You had initially agreed to make a payment into the Housing Trust Fund.
Yes, we made an agreement to do that, yes.
Okay,
Or we
fine.
signed an application for that, yes.
Yeah, so that means that it was your intent initially to make a payment.
Yes,
Okay. And so when you decided not to make a payment and you changed your strategy, you
correct.
and you never made the payment. And so you got letters, there was communications from the city to you, and I think there was a response from your company to the city that you would be making a payment in January or something because you're waiting for closing. I think that was some of the documents I've seen.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we didn't close until the end of February.
And that, in your view, that hindered your ability to make the payment.
Correct.
Okay, we have a technical problem. He's disconnecting for some reason. Let's do this. Why don't we put him in a waiting room, then bring him back, because we can't, he's not being heard at all. Mr. Elsie, you understand what I'm trying to, I don't want to, I'm not trying to be unfair to your client, but we can't hear it.
I understand.
So if we could bring him back in and see if that clears things up.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I could hear you. I guess you couldn't hear me.
No. So your response, what response were you giving at the time, for the record?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was the matter we were speaking on again?
Oh, we were speaking on the scheduling, your lack of your
Right,
ability
the
to make
payment, right, the
initially.
payment was, you said the payment was going to be in January. The closing got delayed until the end of February, which was why we hadn't made the payment. The permit had already been paid for and picked up at that time. A new partner had entered the entity who was on board with providing the units with me, which we thought was better for the community. And then we started the process of amending those plans for the providing of units instead of payment.
Okay, and I guess my final question, because I'm a little at loss to understand why we are in an appeal process. Did your company attempt to sit down with city planning and or L&I to discuss that you had changed your strategy? You wanted to go from a payment to providing units, and the best way to do that?
Well, we had been following the steps through Eclipse to amend. And it's been a COVID shutdown, so it's not like a normal time where we can just walk into the office and talk planning like we used to be able to.
No, not suggesting you just walk in. I'm asking, did you, through either yourself or your lawyer, ever call city planning and say, look, we changed our strategy. Things are now different. We want to not make a payment, but we want to now provide affordable units. And what will be required to do that? Did that conversation ever happen between the parties?
I thought it had, but I guess.
Did you ever have that conversation, Mr. Smith? Or your architect or your attorney, to your knowledge, ever have that conversation with someone in the city? Yes or no?
Yes.
Who had that conversation?
Well, we've been having the conversations around this intent to review for months.
No, we're talking about.
Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm confused, but we've been saying that we are working on correcting this intent to revoke. The effort to correct it is updating our documents to provide instead of make the payment. And we've been working on this for months now. We got help up in the streets department. There was back and forth over the application form. It's literally been in motion for months.
Mr. Smith, you're missing a point. You're skipping a step. What I've asked is, prior to the letter even being written, I'm asking you that at the point that you made your decision, well, let me ask you a different question. Did you receive the letter of intent to revoke before you made your decision to change the method of compliance?
I don't know the answer. It's the timing of that. I don't know.
What's the date of the letter of intent to revoke? What's the date of that letter?
December the 9th, 2020.
December the 9th, 2020. And you've made some decisions regarding your method of payment in January, February of 2021, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
Correct.
Okay, so it appears that you made that decision after you got the intent to revoke.
I guess our decision to change the affordable units is not around the intent to revoke.
Well, I'm not
Our
asking you,
decision is whether,
listen to me.
I'm
I'm
confused.
not asking that question. I'm asking you when you made your decision, and I'm using the intent to revoke as a reference point. That's all.
right. Now, again, I don't know exact timing to be able to say within those months if it was before or after, and if
Okay.
it was for that reasoning.
Okay, so the question that I asked, and Mr. Pincus also asked, is whether or not anyone from your development company had a conversation with the representatives from the city of Philadelphia sometime in 2020, advising them of your intention to change your strategy. Did anyone call up and say, hey, look, guys, we got to change. We want to make a change. We need to make some amendments to the forms. Did any of that ever happen?
I thought it had, yes.
And who do you thought, who was responsible for doing that in your company?
It could have been myself. It could be Lee through filing the amendments.
Did he advise you that he had done that?
Yes, they are filed. Yeah, the
No,
amended permit
that's
has
not
been
what I
filed.
asked you. That's not what I asked you. I said, did Lee, your attorney, advise you that in fact he had those conversations with the city?
I don't remember.
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you. Anything else from anyone else?
Yes. Just to go back to the points you're making, as I understand the documents that have been presented, there was this mixed use housing agreement. I'm not sure I'm labeling it correctly, but it's a city form. And the one that was presented last is dated August the 3rd, 2020, which shows the applicant is proposing to pay $88,884. And that form was submitted to the city. And when the letter was written on December the 9th, which was attached as an exhibit to Mr. Elsie, if I'm saying correctly, Elsie, that there had been no notification made to the city of a change in the plans, if I'm correct, to change from making a payment to instead constructing 2 affordable housing units. Is that correct, Mr. Smith? There had been no notification of a change from making a payment to actually changing it to construct affordable housing units. That notice, there had been no notification made to the city prior to the issuance of the city letter on December the 9th. Is that correct?
That is correct. Oh, that's me, Mr. Daniel, right? That was for me.
No, that's
Yeah,
from Mr.
that is correct.
I ask Mr. Smith to answer that question.
Mr. Smith? Mrs. Smith, did you
Yeah,
hear the
so
question?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Did you hear the question from Mr. Pincus?
Could you repeat it, please?
The question is, on August the 3rd, an application form of an agreement was filed with the city stating that an affordable housing payment of $88,884 would be made. A letter was issued on December the 9th saying that that payment had not been made. Had there been any notification to the city made between either August the 3rd or December the 9th saying that your plans have changed and you no longer would make the payment and instead wanted to construct two affordable housing units? Had that notification been sent to the city?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything from anyone else? I have a general question, Mr. Elsey, as legal counsel to this development, is there any reason why your client would not want to have a conversation with the representatives of the city to discuss a change in strategy and how best to accommodate that strategy?
The only thing I could say as part of the project team is it's not always easy just to reach out and grab somebody from L&I to have this sort of discussion. There was a member on the City Planning Commission who was the primary contact on this, and at times we got in touch with him, at times we waited months for a response. It sounds, talking about it now, it sounds like the great idea, like we should just have called them up and had the discussion, but it's not always clear, and especially then dealing with COVID precautions, how easy it would be to have that discussion.
But what about just writing a letter so that it's documented that in fact you had changed your strategy and so the city would not be expecting them to check? That would be good.
Sounds like that would be a good step to take in resolving this situation.
Yeah, I guess it's unfortunate that we're at the appeal process because the appeal is fairly narrow in scope. And I don't think that wasn't, what you want is not part of the appeal. And what you're doing in terms of zoning, et cetera, is not relevant to the appeal. As an attorney, you and an architect, you understand how these things should be prepared and how they should reflect the project. And at the moment, what you have is a very different set of documentation. Okay, all right.
Although I would like, just for consideration, boiling down.
Why don't we
to
do
the
this before we do
technicalities.
that? What I'd like, if there are no further questions, what I'd like to do is have both you and Mr. Panko give final oral arguments. That may be the best thing to do in terms of hearing your positions. How's that?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we do this? We'll have Mr. Panko go first, and then we'll have Mr. Elsey follow up.
Thank you, members of the board. As you just noted, this is a very narrow appeal, just specifically about the notice of intent that was issued on notice of intent to revoke issued on December 9th, 2020. Prior to that, the owner had a agreement with the city to provide $88,000+ to the Affordable Housing Trust. That was the owner's option. They were able to choose either that or the affordable housing. As we've learned today, nothing was communicated to L&I in between August 3rd of 2020 and December 9th of 2020 when that letter was issued. And so really that's the only issue we're here to decide. Did they pay or did they not? As you heard Mr. Daniel testify, we have received no payment to date as required to obtain or keep essentially the building permit. That option is still on the table if the appellant had wanted to do so, but they have not. And so for those reasons, I believe the board should vote in a city affirm decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Elsey?
Thank you, members of the board. Upon the issue of the mixed income agreement signed, it appears the fully authorized and signed form has to do with providing affordable units and not making a payment in lieu, whereas the proposed agreement to make a payment in lieu is missing a signature from the city. So in regards to that, we'd like to appeal to the board to dismiss this complaint and allow us to handle it through amending the forms and working with the Planning Commission and the Department of L&I. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And this may be a bit unorthodox, but I just want to ask one follow-up to Mr. Panko. Had there been any conversations between you and attorneys for the developer to come to any kind of a negotiated agreement?
Mr. Elsie and I have been in contact regarding the appeals. That's why, as Mr. Jefferson noted, there's been 4 continuances in this matter. That was to potentially allow time for this, either to have the payment received, or, you know, for ultimately for everything to be amended. But at this juncture, it's been, you know, we're coming up on 10 months.
Okay.
So that's why the city's moving forward.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no additional questions from anyone, what we will do then, with regard to appeal number HA-2020-004384, 1201 Morton Street LLC, we will poll the board. I will lead the vote. City affirmed.
City affirmed.
City affirmed. City affirmed.
City affirmed. The vote is city affirmed. Mr. Elsie, as you know, you can appeal this decision should you choose to, but that's the current standing of the case. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you, members of the board.
Okay, have a good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to recuse myself for the next 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Discussions confirming whether or not the next appeal involving Mr. Chepitar is going forward. I don't think I need to be involved in that conversation.
Okay, thank you. Please have the record note that Mr. Pinkers is recusing himself for the next 5 minutes or so. Let's go back then to appeal number HA-2021-003558, Ilya Chapitar. Mr. Johnson?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. We had a chance to speak about this in a conference call with Mr. Stanwood and Will Fernandez and myself, and the appellant is going to withdraw the appeal.
Okay, is Mr. Stanwood present on the call now?
I am. Can you hear me, Chairman?
Yes. Okay,
Hi,
I just
good
want to
afternoon.
confirm that your client is withdrawing this matter.
Yes.
Okay, just want the record to reflect that Mr. Stanwood, representing Mr. Ilya Chapitar, is withdrawing this appeal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for your participation and your patience.
And we thank you for allowing us a few minutes to talk. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thank you.
I think that concludes our cases. I'd like the board to remain for a moment for executive session, but I think that concludes everything.
Yes, it does.
Okay, Mr. Fernandez, everything going okay in fatherhood?
Yes, thank you. I was just sticking around to say, well, I guess hello and goodbye, and thank you for hearing our case today, or
Okay.
for calling our case today, I suppose.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank
Sure,
you.
you too.
Okay, Ms. Spangler, thank you. Your day is done.